On April 20th, on International Circus Day, on Glitch Channel, there was this. And even though many people have already watched the trailer of the new episode, I still found a couple of details that nobody noticed or mentioned in their videos. Hello everyone, and look closely at the moment where Caine teleports Pomni, Ragatha, and Gangle to Candy Canyon Kingdom, and we see a smile on Gangle's face. And then one more fragment from the trailer also shows us Gangle's smile. But we all remember that in the pilot episode, the Joy Mask broke, and as far as we know from the leaks, Gangle has no spare masks. So we can think that either Gangle could learn to repair her Joy Masks, or Caine took pity on her and gave her another one. But I'm more interested in whether Gangle will be able to keep her mask intact in the second episode. And judging by the rest of the trailer, the Mask of Joy will be broken again as soon as Gangle is in Candy Canyon Kingdom. And also, it is necessary to look carefully at the moment of teleportation itself. And if most of the audience is sure that in this moment of time, Caine teleported only these three girls, then you are very wrong, because at a closer look, you can see silhouettes of Jax and Kinger. And this already tells us that there will be no division into groups as it was in the pilot episode in this case. Then we are shown a familiar scene where we learn what Candy Canyon Kingdom is, and in the next scene we see the familiar gummy elephant that Gooseworks announced more than a year ago. And even in this scene there is a small reference that the new episode will be about Jax or Kinger, but I'm almost 100% sure that the new episode will be about Jax, and you'll see why in the future. And here comes that long-awaited moment when our circus group arrives in the city, where they are happily greeted by a crowd of mannequins. And if you remember the pilot episode in which all the mannequins are similar to what we see in real life, and some of them even pose a threat, then just in Candy Kingdom, all the mannequins are friendly characters who are only happy to welcome new guests. Candy Castle itself is made very qualitatively and includes a lot of small details. Also, the attention of the audience was drawn to the figure that hangs over the city, and over the 2 days, I heard a lot of theories about what it could be. Starting with the moon and ending with Caine's closed eye, thanks to which he keeps an eye on everything that happens. But even in this same scene, there is at least one more of the same element, and throughout the trailer we will see many of these orbs. And I'm sure it's nothing more than a decorative element that decorates Candy Canyon Kingdom. But few people have noticed the mural in the center of Candy Castle where you can see someone's image, and I have a few theories about who it could be. The most logical one is that it depicts the king of Candy Canyon Kingdom, who left all his lands to his beautiful daughter, Princess Lulilalu. But why haven't we had any mention of this character and why he was never shown in the trailer? There is a theory that the king of Candy Kingdom died a long time ago, and now there are only memories and frescoes, or maybe even small sculptures that we can show in the new episode. But what makes us all think that the king of Candy Canyon Kingdom is dead? If we zoom in, we can clearly see a familiar silhouette that looks a lot like Caine. And then I have a theory that Candy Canyon Kingdom doesn't exist at all, and it's all just one big fantasy that Caine created to get rid of the characters he's tired of. I mean, look how happy he was when he sent everyone there. And then really interesting events begin, and Gooseworks immediately decided to show us all the mood of the new episode, and in one of her posts, she also stated what mood the second episode will have. And if we look at everyone individually, Gangle has lost or broken her mask of joy again and is crying all the time again. Kinger, as usual, does not understand anything, but Pomni understands that something terrible is about to happen, and unfortunately, it will happen to Pomni. Jax never ceases to surprise us, and as usual, he came up with something that everyone else will not be happy about. And judging by his smile and candy shotgun in his hands, we understand what will happen next. The scene with Pomni doesn't do anything useful for us, but then we are introduced to the main villain, Gumagoo and his gang, Max and Chad. And that's official information. I think Max is this purple alligator and Chad is the one sitting next to him. We notice that Gumagoo is watching something, and it seems to me that his main target will be Candy Castle. You can see that the gang of alligators is located in the desert and next to parked their truck, which we will meet in the trailer. And as a fun fact, these gangsters have only food with them, namely eggs and 2 candy daggers that look more like candy. I think this location is temporary, while the plan is being worked out. The scene with Pomni inside her room is also meaningless, and I can only say that the amazing digital circus is 100% a game, because the collision of Pomni with the cube and the resulting glitches directly hint that this action is not written in the game code. And did you notice the spare hat and shoes in Pomni's room? And if we look closely, we realize that the size of the spare hat and the one on Pomni's head are different, and maybe the second hat is just a toy. The next scene was shown to us about a month ago, but then we had only an image on which nothing was clear. The main question was what our characters were standing on, but after a while we realized that it was the second truck that was shown in the next scene. But back to the fact that Ragatha is clearly dissatisfied, and the question is what? It is unlikely that Kinger did something, but the sarcastic smile and genuine satisfaction on Jax's face directly tells us that it was Jax who caused Ragatha's nervous breakdown. But what he did, you will learn a little later. In the meantime, think about what shadows we see behind the characters. And here is the next fragment and shows us the chase of the circus residents after the Gumagoo gang. And the reason for it, as I think, is the familiar Pomni, who is hysterically holding on to the roof of the truck in the hope of saving her life. And pay attention to how skillfully the truck with characters rammed the Gumagoo truck. However, in the next frame, we see that it didn't go without consequences and some mechanism was damaged, which led to skidding on the road. Pomni is still hanging on the roof, but Max apparently couldn't hold on during the collision and fell out of the window, but his ability to control the lasso perfectly made itself felt, and in the next shot we see that the truck with the Gumagoo gang also felt the effects of the collision and started to twist violently while Max was able to successfully climb on its roof. And then we are shown the scene where Max is captured by the circus residents and left to be followed by Jax. That's the most popular theory, but do you think everyone else could have gone somewhere in a location they know nothing about? I think everyone else was trying to fix the truck, but apparently they couldn't. And also, an interesting detail of this scene is that they are on the water, and so theoretically, since the truck is made of candy, they can successfully float on it. But since nothing more interesting about Gumagoo and his guys was not shown to us, we can be sure that this is the end of their storyline. And we move on to the scene where we are shown a floating truck, and in the distance some silhouette flies out of the water, and apparently we can say that it was Pomni. And another interesting detail that I noticed is Gumagoo's binoculars, which now appeared in Pomni's hands, and apparently he gave it to them in exchange for his partner and also told them where to look for Pomni, but as you already know, Pomni found himself. And if you look more closely, it is noticeable that Pomni appeared near the rock, which will also play one of the key roles in the new episode. As you can see, Pomni could not have flown out at that speed by herself, which means that someone planted her, and I think all the residents of the circus realized it. And most likely at that moment, Jax decided to take control of everything and went to the very rock near which it all happened, and that's when this scene happens. And I was wondering if you could guess what made Ragatha so angry with Jax. However, the fact that the car is broken is not the biggest threat, because this rock is home to our old friend Fudge Monster. And if we remember his first appearance, we can safely say that he looked like an alligator, actually like Gumagoo and his gang. But already in the trailer, he appeared to us in a slightly different video. Does this mean that Fudge Monster can take any shape and become any size? Because if we look at the next scene where the second truck is on the verge of being swallowed by the Fudge Monster, it is obvious that he was able to lift the huge truck with only one tail or hand. And by the way, as you could notice, in this scene, Fudge Monster is again in the role of an alligator, which proves to us his teeth that are identical to what we saw in the announcement of the first season. But what happened to Pomni and why she was thrown out so abruptly? I think it was the Fudge Monster that threw Pomni out with such a great force. But I think everyone was confused by this scene where Pomni is in the basement and we notice her body will abstracted, and it started with her arm as it was in the pilot episode. But I think it's just Pomni dreaming or hallucinating after the fall. And lastly today, we will talk about Princess Lulilalu and her very strange gift to the circus people. Namely, this key, which has already made itself known. Some people think it's the key to the city. It's a so-called Medal of Valor. And some think it was the key that our guys used to turn on the engine of the truck, but I think everyone realizes that this is nonsense. Most likely this key is just symbolism and a kind of gift. But thanks to it, the circus residents will be able to open one of the Candy Castle rooms and enjoy a nice dinner before Kane brings them back. But everything will be known for sure only on May 3rd. But for now, we are waiting and watching new videos on this channel. Bye-bye everybody, bye-bye.